GPU accelerated as well.
Right.
I have my I'm playing on a 4K screen, and when it's a game that pushes my GPU to 100%, then I have YouTube running. My YouTube videos, they start lagging because the GPU can't. I'm playing the game.
Right.
We live in the time of technical difficulties. At least oddities.
It's annoying too, because it's like I wasn't doing anything different, and then like 2 days ago, like it was one of those, like I walked away from my computer and came back and it was, done. So if I drop out, then that's what we're doing. So
yeah. All right. Well, hopefully not.
Yep.
Okay. So this is the day that Andreas has been waiting for months.
Oh, what a movie. So good.
A month. Yeah. So
is it the best one? It might be the best one.
I think it's the best one.
It's up there, man. There's a lot of good in it, but like some of my favorite moments I was realizing aren't until Return of the King. So, as far as like, some of my favorite quotes and things like that, they get pushed to Return of the King. Like I think over time more and more I just love Theoden's speech. Death, so what that kind of approaches one of my favorite scenes in the movie, and Gimli's whole like, great, another adventure, small chance of success, certainty of death. What are we waiting for? Because I was thinking that the whole, Pippin grabs the Palantir. Like there's so many great moments that get pushed into Return of the King, even though some of them are actually even in the Two Towers, in the books, which you would know if you had, read that, Andreas. So, but
I've read the Two Towers.
He's doing really good with his bullshitting face today, so it's tough to tell.
I have read the Two Towers,
just not for homework, not recently.
Right.
Not recently. It was
a long time ago. A long time ago. You should have done a refresh.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it is interesting with all of the stuff that was from the Two Towers book that got pushed into the Return of the King movie. It's like, what's in Return of the King book? Now I don't know what's going to be in there. So I'm going into this even more surprised.
Yeah, and that'll be interesting too, because of how far they got in the Two Towers with like Sam and Frodo. And it's like, wait a minute, I thought this didn't happen till Return of the King because of the movies. But even still, like the whole, Shelob and the tower thing, like in some of that, I was like, wait, this is in the Two Towers. Then what the hell do they do the whole book?
Exactly, because like Shelob was the big thing for Frodo and Sam in third movie.
Right.
I mean, the Palantir didn't take quite as much time for the third movie, but it's still like, what else are we going to see with all of this? And so comparatively, in that ignorance, it makes it seem like the choice to have like a battle at Osgiliath that didn't really happen,
right,
to draw out with Faramir, it's like, that was fine. I mean, of course, I never had a problem with it before.
Yeah, it's okay. Like I think the way that it works out is like, they really do take like, so the big problem with that scene is that Frodo and Sam are there, because Frodo and Sam are like, 100 miles to the east, or whatever in the actual story, right? Like even when Faramir grabs them and whatnot, like I'd have to go pull up maps and stuff, but it's like Frodo and Sam, like going to Osgiliath is very much the wrong direction. And that very much doesn't happen in the books, I mean, and so like that's the
all
big
this
thing
is
there.
True, but
like,
they make that point. It's like, I don't know, they handle it well. The thing that I'm not sure about,
because
the ramifications of is
by rights we shouldn't even fucking be here, because that's one of my like top 3 places where I put the F word, but not number 1, but it's up there, because it'd be great to give it to Sam, and because it just echoes all of the fans watching this like, what the fuck is this? What the fuck is that? Like, they're great scenes, but that entire section is all added, right? Like all of it,
including the Nazgul looking at Frodo and about to grab him in the ring. And so like watching that last night is like, that kind of violates the whole setup of the fact that Sauron didn't know where it was. If a Nazgul has seen it and believes that he's seen it, then that's a problem.
It's literally one of the main conceits of the story that Sauron at no point knows where the ring is and is safe in his assumptions that if anybody has it, it's Aragorn and he's going to Gondor to claim his seat of power and whatever. And so yeah, like if the Witch King fucking saw the ring, even though his mount got shot in the neck, the first thing he's doing is making sure that Sauron knows where it is, you know, because
Yeah.
that's his whole job. That's his whole point of existing. But yeah.
The extended edition did seem a bit more jarring in terms of specifically Faramir of all of the flashback moments. And I like all those moments, but it's hard to do the pacing right with flashbacks.
Which parts? I guess I'm
Well,
not following you.
specifically when it went to why Boromir went to Rivendell and not Faramir, and introducing
Okay.
Denethor, that was a bit rough. And then
In
I
Two Towers?
completely because yeah, they showed that when Faramir was telling that Boromir is dead,
Gotcha.
and then there's
I,
also
I
the
must
moment of
have
him
gotten distracted
seeing
during that scene.
yeah,
So
that weird dream sequence that he had about seeing the boat that Boromir was on. It's like
right.
whether that was real life or like a vision dream that he had. It's like, well, I completely forgot that was in a movie whatsoever. So I was
But
surprised
it's
of how
also
accurate it
in the
was to the
book.
book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I was like, yeah, it's very much in the book. So
But the pacing all around Faramir's introduction got a bit choppy.
right.
I
Yeah,
couldn't
I
put up with
mean,
it.
yeah, it's like some part of it I think is that so much of that that sequence in the book is actually like internal monologue type of stuff where it's like, you know, Faramir's thinking about this and Sam's thinking about that and Frodo probably figures this and so like so much of those scenes are, you know, Faramir's like I read it in your face that, you know, your parting with Boromir wasn't very good and all of that, and it's really hard to convey some of that in a movie, whereas like you getting that in the book, I think that's one of those media things because like in my estimation still, like when, you know, when he is questioning like, oh yeah, you guys are the 9 that left from Rivendell and you left with Boromir, oh so you're a friend of Boromir, and Frodo's like kinda, you know, like you can kind of see it in his
On my
face, and then
part,
it's like, you know, so it would grieve you that he's dead then, and he's like what, you know, and so like you get some of the acting right, but it's not being fed to you like it is in the book, you know, because
Yeah.
you know that's not how it works in real life, and the movie's much closer to that, you know, at that point, you know. It's like they could have started adding like, you know, an omission narrator or something like that, you know, and be like Frodo's shitting his
Galadriel
pants right
again.
now, you know, right? You know. So but yeah, I feel like the movie handles it decently well considering like, you know, there's also kind of a lot of minutia, like, you know, the whole history of their cave system and all of this shit, like nobody cares. That does not enhance the story whatsoever as far as like the action and the plot that's going on.
is
You
is it
know,
mentioned in the book I totally read recently? Why the cove is forbidden?
No.
it's just yeah, it's just like ancient and the kings of Gondor used to go there, so
Yeah, it's
you
just
know.
a sacred
It
ancient
probably was
spot.
like, you know, their party cave, and now they're pissed off that it's being used to garrison soldiers or something, you know. But like, man, if Denethor knew we were using this, he'd be so cheesed off right now. So, but yeah. So I don't know. You know, it's still by and large does pretty good. You know, it's the extended edition that mostly adds the stuff with the Entmoot. You know, so
Hmm.
that's a big part of where it
Wait, what?
gets.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think the Entmoot made it into the theatrical,
No,
or
it
at least if it
absolutely
did,
did. The end moot was
it
It's
was
in the theatrical, but
very,
only like
very
they
thin.
meet the end mood and the decision.
No,
Yes.
uh,
no, because I mean I remember being cheesed off about that, and let's not
that's
get excited
impossible
about my 15-year memory because
because
that's been right so far too, right, Andreas? So, but yeah, it's not nearly as drawn out as it is in the extended edition, even if it is there, you know.
well,
Um,
sure. I mean, I know that like the story of the Entwives wasn't there, or like
sure.
just a bunch of moments with especially Treebeard that were cut out. But there's definitely the large part of the Entmoot that
I
we have
mean,
decided you
I
were
think
not
they have,
orcs. We've
yeah,
just
I
finished
guess
saying
they
good
do have the
morning.
scene where it's like, you know, we've decided you're
Yeah,
not orcs, you know, or
yeah, and
whatever.
then
But
it's
it's
like
like,
this is not our war, and Mary yells, "But you're part of this world, aren't you?" That absolutely had to
yeah,
be there the whole time.
Sure.
And then take us south because take us to Isengard, and
Well,
then
but
all
that's
that.
not the end. That's after.
No,
And
no, it's
yeah,
like
but that part is absolutely in the theatrical because I remember laughing about it and whatever. But so that notwithstanding, the elves was a big egregious one because again, Andreas, they should have been on fire instead of just standing there like a bunch of dorks.
but
And you know,
I'm struggling
the
to remember a book I read 2 weeks
Osgiliath.
ago. The elves weren't there, right, at Helm's Deep?
No, no,
It
absolutely
yeah.
not. Yeah. Yeah, because the elves do basically next to no fighting. They've given up. Their strength has left, and they're like Elrond is so convinced that the strength of men is gone too. Which is like I don't remember like how much of it's in the books, and they get things kind of out of order with it. I think too because like Elrond's got this whole scene, right? That's when he finally reforges the sword, which in the movies makes less sense because Aragorn's had a sword this entire time, right? And
Mhm.
and then it's like all of a sudden Elrond gets a spurt of hope because it's like, ah, hell, if my daughter's going to stay here and die, I might as well help out and pour the
Yeah.
last of my strength into it. But
So
like that's already
why is
happened.
Elrond
You know?
staying when he is sending Arwen away?
I I don't remember if it like what's explicitly said, if anything, and whatnot. But it might just be one of those where it's like, he's technically a half elf. Like maybe he's just like not welcome. Or maybe he thinks that he's got to stay and watch it happen or whatever. Because it's like Galadriel definitely goes, and if you know to invoke the rings of power and whatnot. We know she coulda, woulda, shoulda been a couple of times, right? Whereas like Elrond at no point had ever gone to the west, and whatnot. Like if he's half elven, he was born in Middle Earth, So, um,
Right. I
but
mean, he was half elven at least because his brother started Numenor, right?
something like that. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
So,
I don't know very much about all the other ancient elves. So,
well,
but
I learned a little bit about him just basically looking at dumb shit on the internet that Elrond had a brother who, because they were both technically half elven, they each got to make the choice. Elrond chose to be elf, and his brother chose to be human, but it was
okay,
human with elf advantages, and he
right,
created the line that is the Numenorians that went all
gotcha,
the way down through Isildur to Aragorn uh, and all of that.
right.
And also Elrond's wife is Galadriel's daughter.
Wasn't he rewarded for? He chose to be human, and then him and his line was rewarded because he did something, and that's how they got to be long-lived humans.
Something like, but whatever it is, they had godly grace divine given to them for being human and then something extra. They were definitely half elves in the Tolkien way that you would call it. I'm sure it's somewhere in the Silmarillion, and if EG was here, he would tell us all about it. But no, he had to go play paintball.
Perhaps, yeah.
Or Ben.
So,
Yeah, him too. He has a little bit of a better excuse.
Meh.
Um, yeah, I don't know. It certainly will be interesting if I can see more of what Elrond is thinking and out of the books and Return of the King, because I don't know what to expect. He's not in the Fellowship, and so the point of view is never following anything of him, and so just getting all of these bits of what's happening with like him and Galadriel talking telepathically, which I just accepted as whatever when I was a kid as movie. It's like, oh no, she's so incredibly powerful that they can communicate across the continent.
elf magic. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
But they both have the rings, so they
yeah,
they use their rings, and
Okay.
that's how
right.
Gandalf also like talks to them, but we never see that.
Mm.
That's what I'm going with. I don't know.
Okay. Well, we'll see.
Yep.
But I feel like this is the movie that did the best with all of the many, many battles, like all of them, and they're all happening at the right timing so that the climaxes of all of the battles follow in a way that makes sense and are enjoyable instead of like a sense of whiplash.
Which battles? I mean, there's like
I
two,
mean,
right?
there's Helm's Deep,
I mean, I
there's
guess you could.
Isengard, but Osgiliath was happening at the same time. In
Oh yeah,
in terms of watching the
Isengard.
movie?
Osgiliath was the second one I was thinking. So,
Okay.
but like yeah, they do a better job. We discussed this, I think 2 weeks ago when we were talking about the book. That it's like the book. It's like this is what Aragorn and all the other Fellowship are doing, and then this is what Frodo and Sam are doing, and it kind of makes the book 4 a whole lot more of a slog. Whereas, the movie handles the pacing a lot better, where you're kind of bebopping back and forth between the two, at various breaking points and whatnot. And yeah, you have the skirmish with Faramir's forces in the South Rons and the Oliphant and everything, which is pretty spot on for the way they handle it in the book. And you have the skirmish with Aomer's forces with the orcs. Meat's back on the menu. We found out is tragically not a book line. So,
Great one
you
though.
know, yeah. So,
Yeah.
but they like it. All of that stuff is like understandably drawn out quite a bit more in the books, and gives a bit more detail, and they just kind of condense it for the movie, in a lot of places. You have the epic rap battle, so I was definitely talking to my brother, like between the epic rap battle and then like Aragorn throws open those two doors when he lives and he's like, I lived, bitch. And it's like, oh man, this is a whole different movie, if like I
Yeah.
was like, I'll understand it if we do like a remake, but it's more like The Wiz or something where it's like you got the Jackson Five as like the Fellowship, and you're just a lot more street with your language. Like I'd be okay with that, I think. But
I would absolutely not. I want it to go older. I want it to be more like a Norse saga. I want like all of that bombasticness of like,
yeah,
and then
you
Thor
do
walks in
because
and
you're a
destroys
nerd.
the
Like,
whole place. Like I
yeah,
love the way that it feels like very saga like. Like I was keep pausing the 4-hour movie to explain to my husband,
well,
and this is how it happened in the book, and it felt looks just like the sagas. And he's like, okay, that's fine.
right. Well, but and so I get that, but like I'm saying if the saga version could be what we got. So if we're going to remake it, then let's go a little bit ridiculous and a little bit more, for the
Can
kids
you,
and
Mm,
you know.
but I
can
don't
you
want.
imagine like the pacing of the movies if it was done like the books more like completely split up, so we do all the other guys and then like it would not have been good.
No,
Right.
no. It's like you can do that more
Well,
with a book way better, but like not in a movie.
the
Like
worst the
sometimes.
worst part about it is like so everybody knows it's a trilogy, right? But when it came out, you would have had to wait, the year and a half to 2 years for the fucking Return of the King to come, and you're like, oh my god, and it's kind of like what the Hobbit was too, right? Because the Hobbit, it's like, okay, you've got like the trolls in the first third of the book or whatever, and then you've got like a little bit of some skirmishes and a little bit of action with the elves and some other stuff, but then it's like, then we deal with Smog, and then 5 minutes later we're dealing with the Battle of the Five Armies and shit, and it's just like, yeah, the pacing on that book, it's written like a book. You've got rising action, a little bit of action, you got rising action, a little bit of action, you got climax. That's you can't break that up into 3 movies, you jackasses. So of course
Yeah.
we had that whole tussle with the goblins and all of this other stuff,
Eh,
kind of in the
the
middle,
Goblin like
but
I have never read The Hobbit yet, and when I did eventually watch all those movies that were way drawn out, the first one felt much more just I don't know, it was a fun fairy tale. Like the goblins were goofy in a way that like I could put up with that, and everything else after that was just like, what
tell
the
me more
hell?
about the sagas there, director Alex. So
What sagas are
I
goofy? They are
I think
goofy. They are great.
I think the Hobbit movies could have been good if it has been like 2 movies
Yeah.
and all the Legolas stuff was removed.
Or the romance.
we got to get the romance in there though too.
That's part
So
of it. Out of it.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. So, like I do prefer the movie pacing a lot more. And, it just makes sense because, it's like, great, we had the Battle of the Helm's Deep right in the middle of the movie. How great is that? And then it's like Frodo and Sam fucking off to Mordor and
It
they frolicked
is
in the garden and,
easier to
you
keep in
know,
line what is happening when. And so
right.
the amount of distraction that Aragorn and Gandalf are doing to allow for Frodo and Sam to slip in because Sauron is looking at the big battle and not at the tiny little hobbits. That was intentional, but when you split them up and you see the storylines differently, it's hard to keep track of what's happening when because you have to do the math on how many days ago did the Fellowship break up, and they have to like okay, so it was 7 days ago, it was 9 days ago. How many times have they been running around? It's just like, mm.
Yeah.
And
I mean, like you're talking about that, but like Helm's Deep is almost just like a battle of survival, and like, it's meant to be like, Isengard's forces crush them and then move on to Gondor, right? Like that's how the big bads think about it. It's the Battle of Pelennor Fields that's more the distraction, right? And that's not until Return of the King where, Gandalf's like, "Hey, I'm in Gondor, come get me," and then they're like, "Yeah, we almost did, bitch," and so.
yeah, I mean, that is still another like the big distraction, but there was the discussion that Gandalf was having with Aragorn in this movie of this is how the enemy is thinking and this is how we need to behave. And so also we want
In the
Rohan to
books, yeah.
survive.
Yeah.
Oh, they did it in the movie too. Like after Gandalf the White came back, but before they went and had the rap battle with Theoden, Gandalf was being weird and creepy, wizardly, and was just kind of laying out everything that he knew to Aragorn.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't feel as like, present in the movie to me as it did in the books, because in the
Yeah.
books it's basically spelled out, like this is why we're doing this, this is what we're doing, this is why, I also like the fact that in the books, because again, like we don't have time to cover it in the movie, Gandalf fucked off for 3 days, but it's because he was gathering an army, basically,
Mhm.
like he was literally running to and fro on Rohan, in Rohan to gather all of those
So
disparate
we saw him over
forces.
here the other day,
Yeah.
but then people like 4 hours later saw him way over there, and that's impossible.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So
um,
I like that was a lot more explicit in the, in the books, and then, finally having the realization, it's like, look for me to the east, because that's where the fucking sun rises, and I got a surprise for those orc bastards, because
mhm.
Gandalf's got one trick that he uses multiple times because it fucking works, like
Yeah.
remember that time I talked the trolls to death because the sun rose, and remember that time, like, yeah, don't get me wrong, like having, a few thousand horse riders with spears isn't a bad thing to bring to a castle siege, but the sun did most of the work there, like the reason why most of those guys survived is because the orcs are like, ah, shit, that's bright, so
Mhm. And then they ran into the
yeah.
forest, and even the
Yeah. Right.
non-walking
Hey, was this
trees.
forest here 5 minutes ago? Just fucking run. Which is another one of my favorite things. Like, because the forest just gets up and move, and like not one of those fucking orcs is like, hey, wait a minute. It's like,
This forest wasn't here
uh,
before.
right.
Shouldn't go in there. No, we're bolding.
Yep.
Yeah. People don't think smart when they're routing.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's literally the idea, is panic. So, but yeah.
The star of this whole movie is Gimli. I'll just say that.
Really? I mean,
Yeah.
I love me some Gimli, right? But
I
he's
mean,
the star.
he's my
You know?
favorite. And
I feel like
the
Aragorn does a lot to steal the show, because he breaks his toe here,
that's true.
right?
He
So you
does.
got to have that, and you know,
And he
like
definitely has that like proper protagonist feel of like the hero. He's got the tragic various sides of him. He's got all the burdens of leadership. He's very good with all of it. And then Gimli is there to to be afraid of trees and
To
oh, dude, yeah. I mean,
burp and
Gimli,
wipe his beard with his beard.
I know,
yeah.
I know.
Right. Well,
I
and
love it.
just the even the like the whole Riders of Rohan, early introduction where they're just like sit there next to the rocks, and then they call him out, and he starts just ragging on Éomer because Éomer's being a dick, and he's like, "Well, I'll tell you my name if you tell me yours." And Aragorn's like, "Oh, come on, man, we're gonna play it like this." Like, I was being nice. Gimli's like, "I am being nice."
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, there's
so
small moments from the book I wish I'd gotten in there because when Amir's like, "Where the hell did you come from?" And
right,
they say that they came out of Lothlorien, and Amir says something about like, "Oh, that creepy witch lady, she let you
right,
go. She's evil and scary." And Gimli, it's like, "You watch your mouth. I'll teach you some manners." And they're
right,
about to come to blows,
right.
and then later it's like, "I still have to teach you manners."
Yeah. I mean, something does happen where he's like, okay, I think we got an understanding now, or whatever, like, but yeah, there are just great moments for that. Um, but yeah, like, we're going through that, and I've got my brother and a really good friend. We're watching it together yesterday, and so we're trying to figure out where the F bomb goes so that it can still be PG-13. And I think Gimli gets about half of them, for sure.
Mhm.
Where I like
My
one of my
accent is fucking nervous system.
yeah. Well, there's that, but it's like one of my favorite places to put it is like there's like 3 to 5 places in the movie where somebody says something and it's either, not heard or it's ridiculous, and then they're like, "What?" And I think that's a great place to just put that in there where it's like, "You're gonna have to toss me." And Aragorn's like, "What?" It's like, "You're gonna fucking have to toss me." Like, did I stutter? You're gonna have to toss me. So
Yeah.
uh
As that was starting, I just turned to my husband. This is the best moment of the whole movie. Not the
it
tossing. It's just
yeah.
the best
Well,
one.
it's pretty good, and then it's like, 30 seconds later, you have another good spot where, Theoden's like, "Run," and they're like, "Where?" And he's like, "Fucking run!" Like, "Yeah, great, we got the gate barred," or like even Aragorn's like, "Fucking where?" Because you barred the gate, so we can't get in that way.
Yeah.
So, but
No, the
my
tiny Leg or not tiny, but like super slim Legolas is just going to heave both Aragorn and Gimli up on a
right.
rope, which
Ah,
is like
you've
the
got 20
amount of
guys behind
weight
him. Come
of
on.
all of that. I mean, I guess I
Yeah.
didn't see it, but like also the magic of elves, like he might still be able to do that one person. Like
Right.
just like the crazy amount of weight and the crazy strength of an elf is all there.
Right.
Don't
Yeah,
tell the fucking elf.
right.
Mhm.
So I think my pick, and I was thinking about it again this morning. I think my perfect place for it actually inserts a word where none are. And I think it's the old guy that slips and loses the arrow, because the pure fucking shock on his face when he looks around and just to be like, "Fuck," and then the battle starts. Like, I think that
Mm,
is like the perfect place, because there were a couple other places that are like, these are excellent and I would do them, but they're not until Return of the King.
mm,
Because like I was thinking, post battle where they're talking about, well, we've got to go help Gondor now, and Gimli's like, small chance of success, certainty of death, what are we fucking waiting for? Like, that's up there. So it's either the old guy or it's one of a dozen places for Sam. Like, if you want to keep the movie edited as is, then by rights we shouldn't even fucking be here is probably my second choice. Or like EG did the whole potatoes thing. That's not the right moment for me, but like,
no.
I think just having Sam just like slip it in somewhere because he's such an innocent character would be great. There's Don't get me wrong, there are dozens of fantastic places to drop it, but if you can only have one, I think the old guy is my pick. So
I mean, it's a great moment of just silence of everyone of like, oh, well,
right.
now we start.
Yeah. I let's begin,
Yeah.
because like another good one, like where somebody says what unnecessarily, is when Aragorn's like, "Ride with me," and Theoden's like, "What?" And he's like, "Fucking ride with me." Like the kings of old. So, but yeah, there, like I said, plenty of fantastic places where it
Mm.
would have been good, but that's my personal pick. So we got them with Fellowship because I don't remember what we
They have a
decided when
fucking
we went
cave
through
troll.
that.
Like I don't know how you get
It
better
is a
than that.
great place, but Gandalf gets it in my opinion. But the same scene just before, next
Fucking
time
full of a
fucking throw
toque.
yourself in, you fool of a took. Like, do us all a favor
Oh
and
my
fucking
god.
throw yourself in. So, but Gandalf has so many great places because yeah, fucking cave troll, Sean Bean, great. But also like fucking fly you fools and all of that
No, I
stuff,
think that one would degrade the moment, but
yeah.
the delivery that Sean Bean gave it, if they have a cave troll, it
Right.
says fuck whether it says it or not. It's
Oh
just
yeah,
like
absolutely. Like
perfect.
It's true.
another what moment? Like, I'll take the ring. What? I'll fucking take the ring. I'll take it to Mordor. Like, or one does
Or
not fucking just walk into
Council
Mordor.
Elrond. There's no way am I letting a fucking elf take it.
Right? No fucking pointy eared freak.
Right.
Like,
Oh,
yeah.
we're getting so demonetized.
Oh yeah.
Whatever. The 30 cents we'd have gotten from this is not worth my laughter right now.
Right.
Um,
Totally worth it.
okay.
So Yeah.
Gimli
Yeah, so
seriously.
when we get to the Battle of Pelennor Fields, I wanna give it to Theoden just because
Oh,
that's the only place I could think that's gonna make the death, scream better, so, like, somewhere in there, there's gotta be space for an F word, but other
I,
than that, like,
I
so
think I just thought of where I would put it. With Treebeard when he's like, a wizard should fucking know better.
that was, that was probably, like, my 3rd spot for it because, yeah, that's absolutely one of them, so
Yeah.
because right after that he says there's no curse in Elvish,
Mhm.
Entish, or the languages of men. Well, I mean, you just used a pretty good one though. So
But we need
yeah,
something worse.
yeah,
That brings me to the thought of I feel like these movies do
another
not
great
give
place.
all
Yeah,
right, we'll put that up there.
yeah,
These movies do not give Pippin enough credit for being as clever as he is in the books. Like
sure,
he's kind of he doesn't fully understand everything he needs to be afraid of. He
sure,
is a bit reckless in that way. But he is clever, and the movies make him basically the audience explanatory insert. And I just feel like that's a little bit of a disservice that they made all of the worry and the brains go on Mary and not much on Pippin. And so the best thing that they could get was the further we are from danger, the closer we are to harm, or whatever. I mean, he
right.
said it. Um, but I don't know. I wish it could have shown a little bit more of how he was managing to get them to escape from the orcs in the first place and into the forest, and just some more there instead of him being so naive. Um, but with Fanghorn Forest, it's just I keep remembering now Gimli walking through with his giant axe going around, and the trees are making noises. And while Legolas is like, "Oh, this is wonderful! I've heard it all down," and everyone's like, "Shh, lower it! You're brandishing
Right,
their enemy."
right,
And the trees are waking up, and Gimli looks around like, "Good."
yeah,
Just you can't fucking win with that.
I think that like there's a similar scene in the next movie that I still remember clearly from the extended edition when they have to go into the ghost tunnels and like ghosts are kind of like taunting them before they run into the army with Gimli. Like he just nails it there.
right. Yeah, they're lifting his beard, and he's like just trying to blow him away and whatever.
But
Like,
I don't
yes,
remember
that.
the 3rd movie
So
nearly
good.
as well. Like, the Two
Oh,
Towers was always my favorite, but then when I
mhm.
was a kid, I was watching Two Towers over and over and over again, waiting for the 3rd movie to come out. So,
That makes sense.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's so many still good things in Return of the King. That one is the book that I remember the least because I saw the movies, started the books, read up to the Two Towers, got super cheesed off at the movie at the time over, the petty BS like Osgiliath and the Entmoot being largely cut and um the elves showing up and not even being done right. That's why those memories are so vivid. And then I held off reading the book until after the movie. And still, I'm not even 100% sure if I finished it or not. So that's why I'm like, at least now I'll be able to say definitively I have finally read the trilogy in full 100% and, should have good memories of it and everything. But yeah,
Yeah, I'm still just like, what is Sam and Frodo going to do for the whole book
right.
now that Shelob isn't in it? It's like, that was such a huge deviation from my understanding of the story. So, damn,
Sneak across Mordor.
Right.
very slowly.
Yeah. They spend 2 books crawling across the volcanic rocks in
There's a
Mordor.
really good extended scene in the third one where they're like infiltrating an orc like march and everything.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
do
know if
remember
that's in the
that.
books.
Just
Yeah.
like, do they do that the whole time? I don't know because I remember
I
some
don't know.
comment somewhere that like they spend like a month in Mordor. It's like I don't know. I'll get there.
Right.
I can't carry it, but I can carry. I can fucking carry you.
Right. Yeah.
There's another aspect of the Two Towers movie of that I've always thought was funny and interesting, and just like because it was so strange, I really liked it. And it's Gollum and Smeagol as he's going back and forth, all of his many ways. But the performance just really matters on the enjoyment of the movie to me in ways that I kind of wasn't appreciating as much until I was pinpointing it last night. Like all the times that he's bizarre, like you just like turn around at someone and scream at them, and it's
Right.
unsettling, and it was so good. The like more explicit arguments with himself and his different personalities of Smeagol, Gollum,
Yeah.
and all of that.
They're present in the book, but it's not it doesn't sell it as well, like you were
Yeah,
saying. And because there are so many times where it's like, and then so and so shrieked or whatever screamed or whatever, and it's just like not quite sells you on the moment and gets descriptive. And so when you have moments like that in the movie and it's like, oh man, this is so much more over the top, but like not in a bad way,
yeah,
but like it really sells the drama of the moment. And there was a lot of that around like Frodo and Sam as well, where it's just like the acting is what clinches it, in my opinion. Because even the moment in the book and the movie where it's like, Sam's like talking about the ballad of Frodo and all the stories they're going to
mhm,
tell, and it's like, oh, but you left out the most important part, is where's his friend Sam? And he's like, oh, you shouldn't be kidding, like that's in the book. But Sean Astin sells it so well. Like he's got the hurt look and just be like, like I was being serious, thinking that he's being teased. And he is a little bit, but Frodo's absolutely right as well, that it's like,
yeah.
he really couldn't do it without him. So, but,
Yeah, I mean, similarly, when Aragorn tells Gandalf that Sam went with Frodo, and he's like, "Oh, did he? Well, good for him." He's think of it
right.
as such a good thing. Like he took what I said to heart that he must stay with Frodo. Yeah, and I mean, book 4 is slower for a lot of people, but I honestly really enjoyed it because it was so much in Sam's perspective, and
Mhm.
I thought that was the best perspective that Tolkien could have had in that part of the story, because Frodo kind of knows too much, but
Right.
seeing from Sam's perspective of Frodo's graciousness to Gollum, Smeagol, and Faramir was, I think, just the best uh, way to view it in terms of like stage acting of the characters doing things, and his anguish for Frodo helped make it more interesting.
Mhm. I mean, there's only two perspectives it could be if you wanted the whole story, and so it's either got to be Frodo or it's got to be Sam. And like you said, Frodo knows way too much because Frodo's perspective, like if it's done right, it would be just riddled with like the ring and Sauron like whispering to him and shit like that. And you'd be like,
Mhm,
oh, this is bad, and maybe it even like takes away some of for some people anyway, maybe it takes away some of the heroicness that Frodo actually has, that it's like Frodo is resisting this. He's losing, but he is resisting it, much more so than anybody has or could have, potentially. Um,
Mm.
and so you get other perspectives, like you get the fact that Faramir's like, they tell you in the movie where it's much more hinted at in the books. It's one of the places they flip flop where basically it's Galadriel's monologue in the movie, I think, that it's like, the ring is so close to its goals. All it needs is for this one captain in Gondor to take it up and the world will fall.
mhm,
And, all of that is belabored over many chapters, in the books where it's like, all Faramir has to do is reach out and grab the ring, literally, because Frodo even offers it to him. But Faramir is one of the like, 3 to 5 dudes on the face of the planet that has turned down the ring, and one of like 2 men, basically that has turned down the ring, because Aragorn more or less does as well, and Faramir does. And it's like if he had just reached out to grab it, that's all it
mhm.
would have taken, and
It's
yeah, so
it's a great juxtaposition. Is that the word, juxtaposition?
Juxtaposition, yeah.
Yeah, to his brother, right? That
mhm,
how Boromir is more and Faramir is lesser in the eyes of their father, but how it's kind of shown here. He is not the Boromir. Like most people would fall to the ring's power, right? And he
right.
seems like mostly was actually a good man and a good brother. But Faramir is the better man,
Mhm.
and
Well,
how the father can't really see it.
it's different values, right? Like Boromir wasn't a bad guy. He wasn't a bad
No,
man,
that's not
but
this one. Yeah, yeah.
he was absolutely he was what his father needed, which was he needed a strong warrior general to help defend the city and keep it safe. Whereas Faramir is a good man, like Captain America levels of good, and he's absolutely humble, which isn't especially great for a general, because he's not inspiring the troops in the way that they need to fend off literally oblivion from Sauron's
But
invading forces and
is
shit, you know?
isn't he kind of humble because, well, I don't know about the books, because I'm dumb. But isn't he humble, more this less humble, more lack of self-worth and confidence because his father has ranked him down all the time.
Sort of.
I don't
But
know if it goes that far, but
I think Faramir just truly knows his ethics and he sticks to it unflinchingly. I would go Michael Carpenter like out of
right,
my own preference, but
sure.
the way that it goes in the book is that he promises Frodo that he will release him, whatever it is that he's carrying, he'll be safe. And then later he finds out that Frodo has the One Ring, and he's like, "Oh, well, I could do all of these things, but I promised before you will
Right.
be safe, and I will not take it." So he's sticking to his word.
I'm totally gonna get killed for this, but
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, and by his own
like,
father.
yeah,
Boromir, very good man, but he knew that he had ambition, and so he knew. Like they show it in that flashback that was Denethor sending Boromir to Rivendell. Like he was getting afraid of what would that mean, and he sees Isildur's bane, and he sees that he will suffer the same fate, knowing that he has ambition and he wants to bring and use all of the power he could get to bring his people back to safety. And it's like he knows his own flaws, and he's never had an opportunity to really abuse it. He's never wanted to, but it's it's not the same thing as being wrong as knowing that he would be susceptible and choosing to stay away from it, so choosing to stay away from temptation, and yet he wasn't able to give that choice because Denethor forced him.
God, I hate Denethor.
Isn't he a great villain?
It's like thinking about his stupid face eating those stupid tomatoes.
And yet you love Walter Bishop.
right.
I do. He is a very fun
He's
character.
a great actor. Well,
also kind of an asshole.
Oh, he's great.
Yeah. Well,
because assholes are sometimes the best characters.
Yeah, right. Right. Walter Bishop from Fringe, right? That's the dad.
Yeah,
Whatever.
yeah.
And it's like that's why the actor's so good, is because if they get you to hate the villain, beyond for what just they're doing and whatnot, then they're great. And honestly, like I don't even Denethor is not a villain. He's kind of a bad guy, but he's not like a villain. I think he's just
kind of
like, I think he's just been put into a corner for so long. He's made a lot of really terrible choices, but it's more like Denethor buckled under the pressure than it is like he's just out and out a villain. Because if he was, he would just join in with Sauron and be done with it or whatever, right? So it's like, yes, he's like the worst shitty father we see in Lord of the Rings, and that says something because Elrond's there, and some other stuff. At least for the movies, he's pretty terrible, right?
I don't know. Like I do understand his position a lot more.
Sure, he's got good intentions, but it's like, he deliberately withholds information and all of this other stuff. So
and we know how we feel about that from Susan.
Yeah. So in anyway, but yeah, like Denethor, like, it's more like, good intentions and bad decisions more than it is like he's just an out and out villain, if that makes sense.
I mean, at least how it's presented in the movies, his intentions does not seem good when it comes to Faramir to me. He seems mean-spirited.
Well, sure, yeah, mean-spirited, still not a villain. Like where he becomes villainous is when
he's not a twirly mustache Sauron villain. Sure,
you got to listen. So when he becomes villainous is when Aragorn shows up with a host of people, including other kings of men, and they say, "Oh, by the way, he's technically the real king, and here's a dozen reasons why." And Denethor's like, "Fuck that noise, I'm the king," type of thing. Like obviously he doesn't because he's just a steward, but you have Gandalf's line that it's like not not up to the steward of Gondor to deny the return of the king, and whatever. But Denethor is like, nope, I'm not listening because I'm in charge. That's like as villainous as he gets. Shitty father, yes. Bad guy, yes, but not a villain, like. So even Grima Wormtongue is more villainous,
That's
instead
true.
of Thor. You know, that's what I'm saying. Is like, even if we
I-
take him down to like toady lieutenant level, he's not there. He's a shitty person, yes, but he's
It's
not
just
a villain.
on one of the
You know,
points
yeah,
of great
yeah.
casting for this movie is Brad Dourif as Grima Wormtongue. My God.
right?
I don't know how you could have made that any better.
Yeah.
I like the little complexity that I think, is this in the theatrical or only the extended, of when he sees the army and realizes what master he serves and what he's done, that he like sheds a tear.
That's theatrical as well.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Which, yeah, it reminds me of another scene which was pretty hilarious, because it's like, so Aragorn has tracked 2 hobbits for 3 days with barely any sign, right? He cries next to where they laid so he can see that they crawled off into Fangorn, so he knows that they're probably alive and whatever. But when he gets separated from the host of the Rohirrim and everything and starts going back to Helm's Deep, he comes around a rock and sees an army of like 10,000 dudes. Like, bro, you couldn't have felt them walking like and
I mean,
so in the movie
he
he's like,
did
oh
almost
shit, and then
die.
like turns around and goes, but it's like, bro, like there's no
He
way
was he
you
was
could have
tired,
smelled the army.
okay?
You
Like,
were that close, you know, like so
Although,
give the
it's
guy a
scenes
break.
they play up for the drama, but it's like, I'm supposed to
yeah,
believe that this is happening, you know.
yes, audience needs to see big army coming to these people. Now I know everything, and just like has to be very, very showy in the cinematographic way. Um, Also, Aragorn did almost just die and was saved
Yeah,
by
whatever.
Arwen having an elf dream and giving him her grace, right? Is that what the hell
No,
happened?
because that the necklace is her grace. But the horse saved him.
Oh, yeah,
So
yeah, the horse saved him, but the horse found him alive because
yeah,
it seems like because Arwen kept him alive. And
eh,
since this was an
I feel
insert
like
into
you're
the movie,
reaching on
not in
that,
the
but
book, so it's just like trying to understand what is the implication
and
here.
I don't
right,
know if it's just a dream, but MVP horse is what really did it.
Yeah.
yeah,
Is that the one that he adopted? That one?
I
Yeah,
think
that's the princess horse that he let go, and that comes and
Oh,
finds
yeah,
him.
yeah, but the one that Viggo Mortensen actually adopted is like because I
Brago.
I
know.
think so. Brago is the horse he
Yeah.
adopts
Okay,
in
just
real
making
life.
sure. Then there was another one that he bought for one of the stunt riders that couldn't afford the horse she bonded to.
Right.
So
He's a good guy. No one comes from good stock, good country,
Mm.
really.
mhm. Nothing nepotistic there.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
Is
just to
he
be what it
I
be.
just
Is he
I know this
Swedish?
sounds stupid. I was gonna say, like, is he Danish? Like,
He-
I didn't realize.
yeah, he speaks Danish. He's actually from, well, his family's from my town, so that's why he's extra good.
Okay. So like even more of a kinship then. So
Yeah. My grandma's friends with his aunt. I've never met him or anything, but he's
Dude,
he's
you
from
gotta
the
work that.
neighborhood.
You got to work that. That's amazing. Just be like, hey, dude, I know it was 20 years ago and a lot's happened and stuff, but we've been doing this thing. We're reading the books. Not me, though, but we're reading the books and going through the movies. And if you could just pop over for 5 minutes, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, they grew, if I remember correctly, he mostly grew up in America, but he speaks Danish, and he visits here every year, I think.
I think he speaks a lot of language. If I remember something like his father was like a diplomat of some form, and so they were in a bunch of different countries when he was growing up.
Wild.
Yeah. But he was like, the idea that anyone else but him was Aragorn is horrifying, and especially what was his name? Fucking Lestat, right? Who's the guy?
That's Tom
Stuart
Cruise.
Townsend. No, I thought it was Stuart
Stuart
Townsend that was being cast for it
Okay.
or something, and then he like refused to show up for the training. It's like, we're gonna get rid of you and get Aragorn or Viggo Mortensen.
That was
Wonder
like
if
on
that
the
guy-
day or something almost.
Yeah, it's like I
Regrets.
could not imagine anyone else. I could not imagine Townsend doing it.
Right.
I don't think it was ever supposed to be Tom Cruise.
No.
You were just saying, so that's where I went. So it's like,
Oh, Lestat, because right, the
Yeah,
actual Queen of the Damned
yeah, that one.
movie. You should see the Lestat in the TV show. He's so good. Holy shit. What an actor. Anyway.
yeah, I don't know. This guy would have had to gotten like a bunch more grizzled and stuff. Like none
Yeah.
of his pictures are really selling me on it. But But I think part of that is because Vigo is just like perfect, like there's just so much where it's like the casting just worked out exquisitely,
Oh, yeah.
even like Sean Bean and the whole like, I've died in 83 movies, I'm not taking a fucking helicopter, like perfect, like
Mhm.
I'm gonna hike 3 days in my gear before I'm gonna fucking take the helicopter.
Really
So,
authentic.
right.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it is truly hard to find an actor that didn't do the greatest. I kind of think Eowyn had some struggles, but I think that's mostly just as partly
her
that
character is kind of flat, so
yeah, there's that.
and most of what happens in the movie doesn't happen in the book because she
Yeah.
stays behind,
Well,
so
she stays in charge of home, and
right,
that honor is significant, and so they had to
right.
change it a little bit for her to be with Helm's Deep, and so it's the very much not like other girls, she wants to go be a boy warrior because she doesn't want to go with the women and children, but do not discount how fucking important it is to protect the women and children.
No, of course, but
Yeah,
I'm just
but
saying she
the
wasn't
way
in the
that they had
movie,
written out the lines, it just kind of like you could have done slightly different than that. I don't know.
right?
Arwen's kind of meh.
Well, she doesn't even talk in the books.
Yeah, I
Like,
guess.
she's
Like
there,
in
she's
the,
silent,
I don't
she's
know.
pretty,
Yeah.
and then she's gone. There's no discussion.
Right. Well, and yeah, like the one of the things that I haven't figured out and don't understand, and it's not obviously been like a big draw, or I would have, is just like where does all this Arwen side story bullshit come from? Because it ain't in the books as near as
No.
we've read, so there it's got to be in the appendices, or it's got to be something, or did he just completely fabricate it to make the movie more interesting? Like,
I
I
mean,
don't know.
somewhere between them,
So
like, even if they did fabricate it, 1, it was more or less well done, and 2,
right,
it needed to happen because of I would say, there would be a feeling of bait and switch betrayal to the audience because they would see Aragorn and Éowyn working together, and, Éowyn's definitely enamored of him, but for every time that she says something to Aragorn, he is thinking of Arwen, and so the audience knows that it's never going to happen with Éowyn, and if they
right.
had stuck to it exactly as it was written in the books, it would have been a bait and switch, and so very, very good decision to deviate in that way,
Right,
in my
and I
opinion.
mean, we talked about that a little bit when we were talking about the books and that sort of thing, but, it's still just like yeah, because, I mean, she does wind up with him at the end, right? She still becomes his queen and all of this stuff, I'm pretty sure that's all accurate to the book,
Yeah,
with Arwen. But yeah, it's
yeah,
like he's obviously not courting her while he's on the road and all of this other stuff. So it had to have happened before. But I'm just like, where is that story? And,
mhm,
kind of like your question, how much of this is dream and how much of this is her casting her grace at him from fucking Rivendell and all of this other stuff? I have no idea because, I just take most of it as like a dream sequence, or maybe even, like Elrond kind of has prophetic powers, right? That's kind of his thing, is that he can see outcomes similar to like Galadriel, what she can do and whatnot, but his seems to be more well developed in some ways. Except that he's a lying bastard and, withholds the ones that he doesn't want to be true, like, but I had babies, so it's kind of fucking important.
which,
But yeah,
it's maybe the is it difficult for elves and men to have children? Because obviously they have, but in the past,
right.
but she seemed to be so, uh, shocked by it that, like, "But there was a son that you didn't tell us about," or something. It's just like, why wouldn't there have been if you were gonna be his queen?
Maybe,
I
yeah,
don't know.
Whoopsie
yeah. I mean,
daisy.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Again,
Gangs of New
because
York. Think of the guy there who goes whoopsie daisy. That's Elrond.
yeah,
Didn't I mention that?
yeah. Well, and but that's what I think is like he's just holding that back, right? Because it's like, he focuses on the whole like, well, if she doesn't have kids, then she wanders around the woods like some old crazy lady for the rest of her, elvish life. And it's like that's a really fucking long time. Like they're out there in the 2000s, like, hey, did you hear about that creepy old lady running around the woods
Right.
still?
Yeah.
Whereas like there's
Baba
like
Yaga.
95% of the futures where she goes and marries him that she has kids, and Elrond's like, yeah, but that's not the outcome that I want. And that's why I'm like, he's a bastard and a bad father because,
Yeah. He is lying to her, he is trying to encourage her into his choice and not hers, but, I mean, the tragedy of an elf dying, and he watched his brother die for the same choice. I can really understand him, especially wanting to protect his daughter. It's just, yeah, he shouldn't have been keeping the secrets from her, but he's not nearly on the level of Denethor,
Yeah,
in
well,
my
but
opinion.
that again, that's what makes him a good villain, right? He's got good intentions, but he's doing it all wrong and it's got a terrible outcome, you know. So, yeah, great. He's got good intentions. That just makes him lawful evil, you know, instead of like chaotic or something else, you know, because sure, you know, he's decided he must protect his daughter at all costs. It's the all costs part that makes you bad, especially when, you know, the ends justify the means. And so he's like, "Oh, I'd push a child out of a wagon as long as Arwen went back to, you know, to Valinor and lived literally forever worshiping at the feet of the Valar, like cuz that's what elves are supposed to be doing, you know.
Mhm.
We weren't supposed to come over here for the last 10 or 20,000 years and fight a bunch of orcs. That was bullshit, you know." So, yeah, and I am hamming it up just a little bit and everything, but that's where I'm saying like his misdeeds are not harped on nearly enough, you know, for that sort of thing. So, but
There's something I wanted to bring up before we get out of time with Smeagol slash Gollum, how he in the end is conversing with himself about leading them to Shelob,
right.
and she can kill them. But he did suggest that path before that. When he was, good in the movies, was he intending not to feed them to Shelob until that point? I guess is the implication.
In the book, he made that decision to take them to Shelob way earlier because he was much more deceptive way up front. So in the movie, they changed him to being like having gotten rid of the Gollum personality and being Smeagol and being good up until something bad had happened to him. And it was very dramatic for the movie and all that good, but it did does yes, he was planning on that pathway way earlier, like at the
Yeah.
because he couldn't kill the hobbits, but Shelob would, and all of that being very important. And he knew of Shelob because he had actually served her for a while when he was trying to get out of
Yeah,
Mordor.
I do vaguely remember that. Uh, that he like leads orcs or something to her, like for 2 feet, like that's, and they got kind of grew a rapport after he escaped from Mordor. Some such. I vaguely remember that. But is he then? So, but the implication in the movie is that he was gonna lead them safely past somehow, or he was intending to do that, but then he reconsiders because
Well,
he feels like he's been betrayed. He is fickle in the movies too, but it
oh
seems
yeah,
like he
but
was
it's
had
the
intentions as Smeagol, right? In the movie, that's how it's
at the
presented.
point that they were at the Black Gate and they realized that they couldn't go, and he says that there's the only one other way. I mean, there's still only one other way. And then Faramir's asking, which route are you taking? And he says it's Cirith Ungol. And it's like, so everyone knows that it's bad. It's like, it's just kind of an odd placement for
Hmm.
him to say, but we can let her do it, except for the fact it's at the end of the second movie and we're not getting to Sheila, but it's like, we promise we'll get there and dramatic stuff's going to happen in the next one.
Right.
And that's about it.
Classic
Hmm.
foreshadowing. So,
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Still my favorite movie of the trilogy because I don't know. I love all the sieging and the battles and the everything that happens in the middle of it. And
I
to call it my mom's favorite moment of this whole movie is when Legolas takes a shield and starts riding it down stairways like it's a skateboard. Just
so ridiculous, but
so fucking
Yeah.
ridiculous, but she like just
yeah.
was tickled by it.
It's the best extended edition, I think. Probably. Though I do enjoy a lot of the extended scenes in the third one too. Man, that's hard to actually design. I'll let you know when we watch the third one.
Yeah, we've got the third book to read, Andreas, and then we will have the movie. Got this project ongoing.
Sorry, what'd you say?
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, this was the movie that Andre's been waiting for, and next week we'll do something with Dresden, and I honestly not sure what it'll be. If we're going to be trying to continue the casting, or we're going to get tired of that and do something else.
Yeah. Yeah, we've
How
got
long do we have
maybe
until
one episode's
Aeronauts
worth of people, but
come out?
November.
Yeah, so we've got some time.
Yeah. And even still, like I'm sure we can talk about it and everything, but we usually keep that to like an episode. So, you know.
Well, we gotta milk everything as content, you know.
Yeah, but it's still the
Don't say the quiet part out loud, man.
podcast, not the Jim Butcher podcast, as much as we change that sometimes.
Yeah, we can do read the first one again and thing too, I guess. Potentially. We need a filler. If people got any suggestions, you can hit us up on Twitter or on the Discord. If you pay on Patreon, you can come in and such.
A patron specifically requested we discuss one of the short stories, which I thought we had done before, but I'm happy to go back and revisit this short story that I haven't seen in a long time anyway. So we might do that. The Warrior.
That's the Michael one, right? Yeah, that's a good one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
we talked about that.
It's been a while, and it's okay. Let's go back with fresh eyes.
Right.
Yeah, but we could do that for next time, like if you want.
Yeah, we might. So look out for that, people looking for Dresden, and then we'll be back with something, probably Return of the King sounding.